Welcome to Wisdom of the World. Today I'm going to tell a story from Norway. And the story is about, is love always blind? The story is called Gudbrand on the hillside. And it goes like this. Once upon a time, there was an old couple that lived on the hillside. That's why he was called Gudbrand, the guy on the hillside. They were very happy together. They loved each other so much. And the wife, whatever the husband did, she would just think that was just the best thing ever. She could have not done it better herself. Now, one day she said, let's sell one of the 2 cows that they had. He said, we don't really need 2 cows. And if we sell one, maybe we have a little extra money. And the guy said, okay, let's do that. So he goes to the market, and nobody that day wanted to buy a cow, his cow. So he said, well, I can't go back home because we have the stable, we have it all set up to have 2 cows. We've always had 2 cows, so no problem. But then he went a few miles, a few kilometers, and then he met a guy who wanted to sell a horse. And the guy said, okay, let's swap the cow against a horse. I've always wanted a horse. So he got a horse. Then a bit of time later, again he came to somebody and he swapped his horse for a pig. She thought, yeah, pig is always good to have. Roast a pig, have some pork. And then so he swapped it for the pig. Then a little later, again, he swapped the pig for a goat, a mountain goat. And then a little later again, he came somebody who was walking with a sheep, and he said, well, maybe a sheep is better than a goat. So he swapped the goat for a sheep. So then he had the sheep, and he walked back home. And then a little later, he came across somebody who had a goose, and he swapped the sheep for the goose. And then again, he met somebody with a rooster, the rooster, the one that wakes you up in the morning. And he says, I've always wanted to have a rooster. Let's swap it for a rooster. So he swapped it for the rooster. And then by that time, it was really late and he got quite hungry. So he sold the rooster for $11. Dollars is their currency. And he bought himself something to eat. And then, he went back home, and just before he reached home, his closest neighbor, he just sort of dropped in, and the guy said, how did it go at the market? And he said, well, so really, nothing to really brag about, but it could have gone worse also. So he told him the whole story, and the guy said, God, I would not want to be in your shoes. You have to explain this to your wife? Yeah, she's going to give you hell for this. And he said, no, my wife is a very kind woman, and very kind-hearted, and she loves me. She will never do that. And the guy says, do you want to make a bet on this? And our Gudbrand says, okay, I have $100 in my attic, which I never touched. My ex said, are you willing to put up a bet, the same amount? And the guy said, yeah, sure. So they had to bet. So the guy stayed there Gudbrand stayed there for a while, and then they went home to his house. And so he goes into the house, and his neighbor stayed outside listening to the conversation between Gudbrand and his wife. So he comes in the house, and the wife says, hello, husband, is that you? Yes, that is really me. And then she asked him, how did it go? And he says, well, nothing to brag about, so. And then he told her the story. There was nobody who wanted to buy the cow, and so I swapped it for a horse. And she says, oh, so good of you. Thank you so much for that. And she says, now we, on a horse, we can go to church on a horse. And so children, please let in the horse. And then he says, no, I don't have the horse either. I, I traded the horse for a piglet. Oh, so well you do things, my dear husband, said the wife. I could not have done it better. I mean, why would we want a horse? People would just say, they are too good to walk. Yeah, and so now we can just walk like we always do. And I always wanted to have a pig, a roasted pork. So children, please let in the goat. And the guy said, but I don't have the goat either. I swapped the goat for the pig for a goat. And then she says, again, how well you do things, my dear husband. A goat is just really, then we can have, see, the thing with a pig is you eat it and then it's gone. And so with the goat, you always have the goat. You have the milk and you have the skin. It's great. So he said, she said, children, let in the goat. And he says, I don't have the goat either anymore. I swapped it for a sheep. And again, she says, and how well you do things. Thank you for that. Yeah. I mean, what would I do with a goat? Yeah. I just have to go up in the mountain in the morning and then go down. I said, geez, so much extra work. And so, and I would much rather have a sheep than I can use the wool to fill my pillow and all that. So children, please let in the sheep. And then the guy said, but I don't have the sheep either. And I traded the sheep for a goose. She says, you again, I could not, as if I was there myself, I could not have done it better. After all, what do I do with a sheep? I don't have a spinning wool. I don't have, I don't like to make clothes. Now we can just go buy clothes like we always do. And so children, please let in the goose. And the guy said, well, I don't have the goose either. I swapped the goose for a rooster. Fantastic, said the wife. A rooster is like, an extra clock and always in time. So children, let in the rooster. The guy said, no, I don't have the rooster either because I sold it at, I sold it, and then because I was so hungry, and so I sold it for $12, and then I bought myself something to eat. Fantastic, said the wife. You take such good care of yourself. After all, if we'd had a rooster, we'd have to get up early in the morning. Now we can just sleep as long as we want to. Yeah. And he says, as long as you're back, you, my husband, who takes such good care of everything, I don't need a goat, I don't need a cow, I don't need a sheep, I don't need a rooster. And then the guy opened the door to his neighbors, says, have I won the bet now? Can I have my $100 now? And the neighbor admitted that he had won. Thank you.